Hola. Today on the show, I'm in conversation with Daniel Moden from Oxford, United Kingdom. He's a teacher by profession and he loves to travel. He's a long distance cyclist, an ultramarathon runner, an environmental activist who leaves no stone unturned to reduce his carbon footprint. In 2016, he challenged himself by taking up a journey on his cycle all the way from Canada to Peru and successfully completed it in 11 months. In 2018, he challenged himself again and took up a journey on his bike all the way from Bulgaria back to his home country, that is United Kingdom. Up next, he talks about all of his experiences and wonderful memories from these trips. So hi Daniel, welcome to Road Benders. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Okay, well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real pleasure, as I say, to give something back to the community. So I'm really, really happy to do this. It's a great project.
Thank you. So from what you've told me, in 2016, you took a 11-month journey all the way from Canada to Peru. And then in 2018, you took another trip which was almost 1 month long. And during that trip, you traveled all the way from Bulgaria back to your own country, that is United Kingdom. So, an 11-month journey is quite a long trip that you planned, and that too on your bike. So I want to understand, what was the motivation behind taking a long journey on your bike for 11 months?
Okay, well, it's quite a kind of a long, convoluted story, really. But back in 2014, I bought my house, and up until that time, I had no commitments, no ties, and I'm not married, I don't have kids. So to have a house was my first tie, and it kind of scared me to have this kind of tie and this commitment. So I'd always been quite a free spirit up until then. So I thought at that time, I don't want to be tied down by anything in life. So although I just bought my house and I didn't have that much money, I thought I'm a teacher, so I had a summer holiday ahead of me, and although I didn't have much money, I went off to India for a month and did some backpacking around India. And during that trip in India, had a really fantastic time. I was up in Ladakh, which is a spectacular part of the world.
Okay.
But I felt that I've done backpacking so many times, it's kind of, as fantastic as Ladakh is, I was kind of bored of the routines of being a backpacker. And along the way, I met a few cycle tourists and just spoke to them about what they were doing, about how they travelled, and it just put the seed of an idea into my head that maybe that could be the next way that I could continue making travelling exciting and fresh for me, but to travel in a completely different way. And after my trip to India, I did some research about cycle touring, and I just thought about all the benefits of cycle touring. Is things like you've got so much freedom about where you go. You don't have to wait at bus stations or train stations for your transport. It's all down to you. I love the physical challenge of it. And what really appealed was the chance to see the places in between. So when you're a backpacker, you go from town to town on a bus. You don't really get to see the places in between, but as a cycle tourist, you see everything. And seeing the places in between, having a local contact, that really excited me, that idea of travelling in that way. So, a year after I got back from my trip from India, I bought my bike, my cycle touring bike, and then 2 years on, 2016, I set off and did my first big trip. So, yeah, that was the backstory, really.
Right. So for this long distance journey, you chose to ride on your bike. So how has cycling changed the way you look at life?
So that's a big question, a really interesting question. I think it's very, very life affirming. So it affirms that it's a common story, but it's a really important story that most people in the world are really good people. I travel through countries like Mexico, all the countries of Central America, which, if you believe the media portrayals of those places, and there's kind of political arguments that go between the leaders of those countries and other countries, you'd get this impression that they're very dangerous places, and they're the last places you should be cycling through. My experience was just the opposite. I had just such wonderful encounters with local people, and they were so curious. They couldn't do enough to help me. So that was really, really life affirming. On a personal basis, I guess I became happier in my own skin through doing these trips. So sometimes I beat myself up a bit about being a bit of an introvert and always wanting to do things by myself. And on my cycle tour, I encounter other cycle tourists who might be cycling in groups or pairs. I sometimes think to myself, oh, why are you so socially awkward that you can't go around in a group or in a pair, or why do you always have to do things by yourself? And during a trip, I just recognised that actually that's just who I am. I like to do things by myself, and actually start to look at it in a different way. Think of myself as actually you're independent enough, you're brave enough, you're resilient enough to be able to do things by yourself. Well, everyone can do that. And sometimes you might see people in groups and you just wonder, actually, is that really working for them? Always having to be in a group and doing things, as a group, and having to compromise and make those decisions as a group. I wonder if some of those people that did travel in groups, maybe they're not giving themselves the opportunity to develop those qualities of independence and resilience and being courageous enough to do things by yourself. For sure, there's advantages of travelling in pairs and groups, but I gave myself less of a hard time through the trip and recognised that actually that's just who I am, and actually let's celebrate that there are good things about going off by yourself. And on the flip side, at the end of the day, when I was camping or if I was doing warm shower stays, I was tremendously sociable, and I tried to be really went out of my way to socialise with people. But just on the ride itself, I found that I was much happier cycling by myself, and instead of giving myself a hard time for being kind of like a loner, introvert, I kind of was happier in my own skin by the end of the trip and saying that's just who I am, and it's a good way to work out who you are and to be happy with the person you are. So yeah, those are two big things that kind of spring to mind, really.
Right. So for your first long distance bike touring journey, you chose to cycle all the way from Canada to Peru. So what was the reason behind choosing this specific route?
Okay, this actually was my second choice. My first choice would have been to cycle from Britain and cycle east to Asia. But I took my trip as a sabbatical, so it was a year off from my teaching job, which runs from August to August. My trip was going to run from August to August. So by that timing, I would have hit Central Asia, quite mountainous regions in the middle of winter. And doing a bit of planning, it just very quickly became clear to me that trip would not have been possible climatically. It would have just either would have been very, very hard to travel through those places in winter, or just literally impossible. So I started having to think of a plan B, and I did some research about what other cycle routes could I take which would give me lots of experience of mountains, which I really wanted to travel through mountains. And I heard about this trail called the Great Divide Trail, which goes through the Rocky Mountains from the south of Canada right through to the border of Mexico, so right across the United States. And that really appealed because it sounded like quite a tough route, and I wanted to challenge myself. And I realised that if I cycled from Canada in the middle of summer and then headed south as winter approached, then I'd be cycling away from the winter in the United States and obviously going towards Mexico, Central America, which are much warmer, much more hospitable climates to cycle through, and I would encounter all the challenges of snowfall and blocked paths in the winter mountains. So yeah, it was the climate then that chose this route. But then secondly, from Mexico south, it was all Spanish-speaking countries, and yeah, my Spanish is not amazing, but I can get by in Spanish, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to travel through countries and practice Spanish and improve my Spanish along the way. I didn't know much about Central America really. It's not that much covered in British education, or we don't know too much about it in the media. And what we do here is quite negative about, gang warfare and drug trafficking, and that could put some people off. I was kind of curious to find out the reality of these places for myself, and as I mentioned before, I don't always immediately believe that the media portrayals of the country are what the country really is like, and I think it's really important for people to go and find out for themselves. So that appealed, and then I knew following Central America, I could go on and travel a little bit to South America, and I knew that the situation in Colombia, for example, compared to 10 years ago, was now safe. So I thought it would be interesting to go and travel in a country that perhaps 10 years ago I wouldn't have dreamt about travelling through because of the troubles that Colombia had. And lo and behold, Colombia, when I was there in 2017, it was just a wonderful country to travel through. The people were so welcoming. I felt very, very comfortable in Colombia. So, yeah, those are the main reasons, really.
That's wonderful. So out of the 2 bike touring trips that you took, what, according to you, were the high points of these 2 trips?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, the hospitality is it's really life affirming, and people couldn't do enough to help me. And I think when I first started the trip, I did a lot of wild camping through both trips, and when I first started, I was very much along the lines of I've got to do stealth camping, and I've got to hide myself away from people, and that would be my strategy for camping, would be to hide myself away and not be seen by anybody. But as the trip progressed, I realised that actually, no, the opposite is true. You need to go to people and tell people that you're there, and get the help from people, and more, as the trip progressed, I would actually speak to people and say, look, I'm looking for a place to camp, can you recommend something? And you never know what's going to come out of that kind of situation if you do ask people for some advice. In some cases, then I was actually invited into people's homes and given a bed and given dinner and breakfast. So definitely the high point of the trips was the hospitality I received from people. And in my job, I'm a geography teacher, so I'm really fascinated by places and landscapes and how landscapes have evolved. But even with that background of being a geography teacher and being interested in the earth and places, I would definitely say it's the encounters I had with people that were the high points. And my second trip was just a mad dash across Europe, so I had 30 days to get from Bulgaria back home to Oxford in England. So a high point for that was just doing that trip in 30 days, no rest days, and having that physical challenge. I think that was quite exciting, and having this very fast whistle-stop tour through Europe. I don't think I want to do it as a regular way of doing a trip. It was very hard work physically, but it was quite exciting to travel in that fast way. So that was, I think, the physical challenge of the second trip was a real high point, I guess. Yeah.
Right.